It's nice to have a
Hello.
conversation. Oh, hello.
Hello, welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to another SDS webinar. It's going to be a really good one today because we have one heck of a resource on IMS, and I won't say too much about that because Saffer Cooper are going to do that far better than I would. But hello, Andrew. How are you? Everything okay today?
Yes, I'm good. Yes, good morning, everybody. Another day on planet Earth.
That's right.
And actually, it stopped raining. Wow, down here. Hopefully, that is done for you as well. I'm busy doing an extension, so there's lots of water around everywhere. We've been pumping out water on foundation. Good old.
So that's why you're wearing an Under Armour t-shirt. Do you want to show the building site you're working on right now to our viewers?
I'm meant to be project managing it, but I'm actually pumping out water. That's quite the extent of my extension at the moment. And I've got a new build to build a bit later on in the year. So yeah, watch this space. It's kind of like live from the site. But anyway, really a slightly different tactic today. Obviously Q&A questions. I'm here to talk about ProVal, you know, what information you can get out of it, what information is coming from SQL. And, you know, I've worked with Sean and his team, Saffer Cooper, over the years, you know, a good bunch of consultants there that we've shared ideas and talked about training and skill set in the sector. And one of the things we've talked about recently is IMS and what is the impact. For me, it's a bit of the dark art, IMS, and it is across the sector. And it's obviously, I don't get too involved in it because, you know, viability ProVal is giving the information. We've always tried to speak to Homes England, and I've had presentations with them to say, can we do something a bit better? You know, hopefully, you know, that conversation can continue. And as we as a company move to the cloud, and we are, you know, on that journey, that hopefully integration with other products and other services and other solutions, you know, can flow a lot better. But today we're going to hear from Sue and the team and Sean about IMS and what's the updates and what's the challenges out there.
Absolutely, absolutely, Andrew. Thank you for that. And just before we get stuck into this, I need to just sort of, I guess, give some people an update on the SDS Mascot, who is the cat who is behind me in these webinars. His name's not
the zebra.
Not the zebra. No, that's I'm not sure what that is. But it's this elderly cat, and you've seen him in many webinars. And he's now gone, and some of you have asked how he is. So the answer is he has abandoned this room. He moved out. He moved into the lounge for the last 5 weeks, and now he's outside. So I just sort of give you a little sort of picture of what he's doing right now. This was him only minutes ago from my office. He's looking very happy. He's sunning himself, and the arthritis is still kind of there, but there we go. He's fine. Probably mute that. Right, so without further ado, let us now bring out the Saffer Cooper team.
Do we drag them? Can I lie? Oh, there we go.
I don't have one of those long canes.
Right. Okay.
Right, good morning, everyone. Okay, so who are we looking at here? We have Sean Stafford, Sue Missin, and Danielle Pearce. Welcome.
Good morning.
And thank you very much.
Morning,
Thank you.
Good morning, Dean.
Sean, would you like to give us an overview just before we go into Sue's presentation?
Yeah, certainly. Chris, Andrew, thanks very much for the introduction. And to everybody on the webinar, good morning. We can't actually see you, but it's nice to be with you virtually. I'm sure there'll be familiar people listening in on what Sue and Danielle are about to share with you over the next 30 minutes or so. I just wanted to say a few words at the start of the presentation about the subject of IMS. There'll be lots of wry smiles from people around the country at the moment because other than spelling IMS, I don't really have any dealings with it as a system. And probably a couple of decades ago or thereabouts, I was critical of IMS, as many people are, and joined in that noise around the inadequacies of the system. But as the years have gone by, I have genuinely changed my view, because from close working with Homes England, all joking aside about the system, I think one of the key messages we wanted to get across today is that this is the binary form of information provision to Homes England. This is the way registered providers provide detailed data that is auditable and they are accountable for. And Homes England rely on that information internally within government to make predictions and forecasts and so on and so forth. So whether we love the system or hate the system or think the system could be improved, and I think there's probably an equal mix of all of that, the truth is it is a crucial system in housing development delivery across the RP sector, and therefore we really should try and respect it as best we possibly can and ensure that the information going into it is informative as possible, because only by doing that can we then start to have a more in-depth conversation with Homes England about what information could we have back out of IMS in much the same way. So thanks for the opportunity, Chris, to say a few words about IMS before Sue and Danielle talk more detailed about the system.
It's our pleasure. I saw the resource that Sue created, and I can't believe how great it is, really. You spent a huge amount of time on that. So, Sue, shall we go ahead with the presentation?
Please, yes, please.
Okay, here we go. So if you can do the Chris Whitty next slide, please, when possible, and I will do my best.
Are we taking off video? Do you want me to take off your video?
No, it's okay. We're all staying on to chat alongside you.
Okay.
Keeping it engaging and conversational. And everyone at home watching this, please send your questions in. I'm monitoring all of them. I've got a questions tab here, and I will bring them in as appropriate within the conversation itself. We want to keep it engaging.
Yeah,
Okay.
please don't wait. Don't wait to the end. Just please let Chris know your questions as we go through the presentation. It'll be really helpful to engage with you during the next hour on IMS. Yeah, as Sean's mentioned, IMS is the principal way that we communicate with Homes England when we're looking to bid for grant funding. So it sets out all the necessary information for you to obtain the grant and then to monitor the progress of the scheme. If we want to move on to the next couple of slides, please. Chris?
Yes, I'm here.
Questions already coming in. That's great. That's the one. Yeah, thank you. So, as this webinar is called the Great British IMS System, I want to convey in this session that I don't want you to think about it as a technical challenge, but I want you to think of it as a key tool to successfully managing your programme. The IMS system alters over time, and we have seen a number of changes over the recent programmes. And again, this programme 21-26 is no different. There have been some changes with the launch of the new programme. So what I'm trying to do in this section also is to explain what those changes are when you look to input a new offer for grant under the new programme. Next slide, please. Okay. The first challenge is getting onto IMS. So I've listed on the presentation that will be available for you how to get onto IMS and the key websites, the key links. When I'm working with new providers, I always suggest to them that the quickest way is to go onto the Homes England website, then click on funding programmes, and there you will find hidden on the right-hand side of the web page the links to the investment management system. And yes, please add it as a favourite. Might not be your ideal favourite or your number one, but add it to your favourite, and then you don't have to go through the process of trying to find it again on the Homes England website. Next slide, please. When you've logged on to IMS, then the first screen that will be presented in front of you is what we call the workflow. So the workflow shows the headings across the top that you will need to use to operate IMS. So as everything, and I remember in the days of John Rouse at the Housing Corporation, he used to say Homes England, or the Housing Corporation at the time, works on a process, and IMS is the same. It's process driven, goes from left to right if you think of the process of bidding for a scheme and then developing a scheme. So you're starting with bids and offers, as we call it now, and move on to allocations and schemes, and then there's the monitoring and the reporting to the right hand side. So some of the information on those tabs is historic and hasn't been changed, but the new additions are included too. So it gets a bit clunky with all the former ways of working IMS, but what we look at here is that the majority of the information that you will need, I would say about 80% of the information is all in the Offers tab. So if you're new to IMS, head to the Offers tab, and that's where you'll find all the information to view the schemes in your development programme. Workflow is a really handy way to pick up where you've left off, basically. So in that screen that I've shown you, tried to display that there's two-way communication again there with Homes England. I've added some schemes that for Homes England to approve and to make changes. So it tells me that it's still with Homes England, and it also shows me that I started, but I didn't finish. Let's hope I finish this presentation. But I started, but I didn't finish a profile change. So that's a really way to find out and just go click on to pick up rather than going through the offers and the offer tabs. Next screen, please. In offers, if you're looking to create a new offer line or a bid, that will be what's you need for this new programme. You need to look at the partnership period. So the new period for the new affordable homes programme is there now on IMS, as I've shown on the offer line tab. So this is where you'd go to start a new grant bid. There have been some changes, so I've listed them there for you, some of the main changes that you will see. So as we move, and there's a drive to the more affordability of the rent that we charge, there's no more opportunity to add in conversion income. So that's one of the tabs that's been taken off. And if you're bidding for specialist housing for rent, you just bid it now under affordable rent. There's no sub-product for specialist. Again, the additions all linking to this Homes England strategic plan and to the launch of the Affordable Homes programme when the presentations went through the key priorities to be addressed in this with the launch of the funding. So in there we've got the addition of SME contractors, which was one of the main points in the strategic plan, where they said in 1998 there was 12,000 SMEs, and we're now down to 2,500 SMEs. So there's a big drive both in the Homes England strategic plan, and therefore it's showing in IMS that we've got to tick the box to see if you're working with SME contractors, and that will be part of the bid assessment. The other points, a couple of the other points I'm going to mention in a bit more detail on the next slide. So if you want to go on to the next slide.
Just before we move on, Sue, we've had a question here from Robert. We have some DPF carried over. Can we add somewhere else?
I would speak to Homes England. I would suggest that they would allow you to put it into equivalent of Rcgf funding, but that's just my opinion. But you'd have to speak to Homes England to see how they want to ensure that that is invested back into the programme.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank
Robert,
you.
let us know if you have any further questions, and everyone else too.
Thank you. So again, what's new on the system? We've got the design and MMC criteria. Again, increasing the focus on quality is an addition that's been brought in with the launch of the new programme. I'll just look at MMC here, and what you'll see is that you've got to tick the box if you're going to apply MMC to the scheme for this particular offer. So not for the overall programme, just for a particular offer. Each import, each offer line is just focusing on that particular scheme that you want to deliver and what you're seeking grant for. So within that particular project, are you looking to bring in an MMC product? And there's the seven categories of MMC. They're all on the capital funding guide if you're unsure. And again, that meets Homes England targets to for delivery of MMC products, and it's within the strategic plan. Also, because of the energy efficiency, material shortages, and the likely 20% decline in contractors. Also, with the addition of trying to increase productivity too, because as we know, the building industry hasn't changed much over recent years in terms of, a bit longer than that really, since, so yes, with the drive to productivity to get more homes built, they're looking to increase the use of MMC products. We want to look on the next slide, please.
Just before we move on, is SME, this is a question from Rob, is SME contractor defined in the guidance?
I haven't been able to find it, and to be honest, in the strategic plan it does say smaller builders, so I was thinking, would I qualify at 5'3" as a smaller builder? But no, it's
I think it's
please
a
help.
good, yeah, no, it's a really good question, whoever submitted that question. What you tend to find with both the capital funding guide and then what derives from that in IMS is you'll find a statement, SME is the case in point here, and then we all desperately look for a definition of what is SME, what constitutes SME. We've all got an idea in our heads what constitutes it, but in the capital funding guide there isn't a described definition of SME. It's a matter of opinion. One could easily derive, if you're working with Redrow or Countryside, then you're not working with an SME. But it's the tipping point at which somebody is considered to be SME. So there isn't a definition in capital funding guide. My only advice would be to speak with the contractor themselves and see how they describe themselves, both in company accounts and the like, as to whether they satisfy that criteria. In much the same way, Sue's previous slide made reference to the requirement to satisfy happy principles. And I'm sure most people on the call are familiar with what are happy principles, but there is then a question about, does it satisfy it without all the happy principles, with some happy principles, what's the percentage of happy principles, so on and so forth. I'm afraid the capital funding guide just is not as specific as that. What we would always urge is just be really careful about what entries you're making in IMS, because what you don't want to do is overpromise and then underdeliver, because that will get picked up when we get to the audit stage. So I'm sorry that's not as defined an answer as the questioner might have liked, but it's because we don't have that level of definition in the CFG. Okay,
Thank
Chris.
you. Yeah. That was a great question. Thanks for that, Rob, and please do keep them coming. And next slide, please.
Okay. Yes, so here we've got another new addition to the programme for the Affordable Homes programme, which is the design tab. So my suggestion when you're looking to input onto IMS is to make sure you've got this information available and it's all prepared. So once you're inputting the bid, you don't have to keep going from file to file or to pick up the phone or message somebody about this criteria. Again, it shows that you're ill prepared to your consultants, but also when you're working on IMS, it's good to just concentrate on the job in hand. Because as we know, there's the timeout period and you don't want to be having to log in and out all the time. The 10 characteristics from the National Design Guide here, and again, that mirrors what it was said in the launching of the 21-26 programme, and I've got the quote there for you. So it reflects that there's an increased focus on the quality of housing, so that we've got a legacy here from the enormous amount of funding that has been made available to build in this era of housing, affordable housing, brilliant quality, sustainable homes that, you know, we're proud of for our legacy as affordable housing providers, but as well that enhances the supply and quality of homes for everyone. We've got the guide for the affordable, the guide is on the .gov website. If you want to look at it, please make sure your consultants are aware of it. As a tip, I would suggest you add it to an agenda for a design team meeting, so that you're getting that conversation flowing through there. And then those design team meetings will, and the consultants' certifications to put on the audit file. Because again, we don't know what questions will emanate from this on the audit checklist. We suspect there will be, because if you've ticked those boxes, we would expect, as we've had to do in the past, haven't we, that they form some form of double check. So make sure that you've got that accounted for through either the architect or the consultant that you're working with, confirming that design criteria for the scheme. And if it changes once it's built, please change, make sure it's changed. So add it to your site meetings as well, so you've got a constant record. You don't want to be found out, as Sean said, once you've done a brilliant scheme, and then you don't want to get picked up at audit because you ticked a box that you didn't need to tick. That's the worst situation possible. Just always make sure you're robust in what you tell Homes England, and that if you don't need to demonstrate it, say, then you don't do so. Basically, is my suggestion. So again, there's the building for healthy lifestyles. Again, for schemes over 10 homes. That's a toolkit that's available, and to make sure again your consultants are aware, so that you get the necessary criteria. All these extra enhancements to IMS will add, a flavour of the scheme, and will give Homes England you'll get extra points, if you like, and points make prizes for grant funding. So, it all adds to the, quality of what you're providing, and the amount of grant that possibly, you will be able to receive from Homes England. Next slide, please.
Just before that, we've got a question here from Sarah Fawcett. If one partially meets one of the criteria, does one say yes or no? Subjective process.
Yes, I would err on the side of caution and say no at this point in time. But when we've got further information when we get to on the slides about additional information, and I would explain your reasoning there, that you're going towards that. But if you're not confident, don't do it, because you'd. But Sean, would you like to add?
Yeah, just to add, Sarah, IMS is the formal communication tool, but on every opportunity and every development, you'll probably be dealing with your IMS growth lead anyway. So in that scenario, Sarah, I really would share it with that person, describe what it is that you're able to achieve, where it might fall short in your opinion of the standard, and seek their opinion on it as well. If they give you an opinion, make sure you document that opinion, because if the opinion is, yes, please tick the box, let's put that on your audit file, so that you're not called up on that, as we keep saying, further down the line. It is an imperfect system because it's qualitative, it's opinion, and therefore, if you get opinion from Homes England, just back it up with any formal response.
Okay, thank you. Hard question. Keep them coming, and we will move on to the next slide.
Thank you. So these don't look very interactive questions at all, the way they're displayed on the IMS system. But for you, I would call them the showstoppers from the Great British IMS system, because this is where you add the flavours. This is where you describe your scheme. You spent hours and months, perhaps even years, putting this scheme together. So this is your chance to explain that scheme to Homes England. It gives the bid assessors, if you like, the really crucial information that you've got the key ingredients. You've talked to the local authority, you've looked at the design and sustainability to create that legacy scheme that you're really proud of. You know will really enhance the local area. You've done your research. You can demonstrate the housing need in the area, that you're providing housing that generally be required in that area, because nobody wants to create voids, but has been done in the past. But we're well past that. We've got really good statistics now. We've got good analysis. So you've been able to use that and tap into that to demonstrate that the type of housing that you will provide meets a level of housing needs and which the local authority are also comfortable with. Because again, we're working in isolation here. We're looking at those schemes. So you need that local authority overview to help you to make sure that all the providers are thinking that they're going to tap in that same needs group. And there could be a scheme within a really close proximity to what you're considering. So start discussing, your potential pipeline with the local authority from early days, and then to use that engagement and add that to the forms he's been filling in. Again, you're also looking in with the information to address the strategic objectives and the proposed England. So there's MMC questions and environmental standard questions in these additional information boxes now. Again, if it's not applicable, just put not applicable. There's no point trying to put information together that's not plainly true, or you just keep it factually correct, but make sure get Homes England drawn in to what you're planning to show that you've got that, that you bring in those key ingredients together to make a fantastic scheme, and it will all help to enhance your bid when it's put forward by Homes England to the bid assessment panel. So
I think, Sue, just to jump in on that bid assessment panel, I'm sure people on the webinar do appreciate it, but the more information, factually accurate, succinct information you can put in these pages, the better opportunity you provide to your individual growth officer to present your scheme at the bid panel. We all know the hierarchy of decision making. So if your scheme is already an outlier from the norm, and therefore it's going to a regional bid panel or a national bid panel, then this is your chance to make your case to support approval of the bid in the first place, and it might be in the exception that you're asking for a higher grant rate, or you're asking to build smaller properties than the average in that locality. These screens are crucial in you being able to tell that story.
Okay. So even though they don't look like very interactive, please use them. Please do. Just don't pay lip service to them. You've got that information in board reports. You've got the information perhaps in design team meetings. Copy and paste them into IMS to provide that really good background and detailed information. I know it's one of the last screens, and we're all getting a bit fed up by the time we're on IMS at this stage and thinking, oh, we're nearly there, we're nearly at the end, we can press submit, but please take time over these screens. Next slide, please.
Thank you. And just before that, Stuart has sent in the definition according to Homes England on the strategic partner section of their website, which I've posted in chat. So you can all see that along with the web link. Thank you very much, Stuart. I'm really enjoying the engagement today.
So I think what we all associate IMS with, if nothing else, is forecasting, and especially at year end when we get those phone calls from Homes England. What I'd suggest is you know, hopefully after this session, one of the key tips is don't be reactive. Don't wait for that prompt from Homes England. Use the provider reports, and I'll show you that next where to find those on IMS, but use the provider reports in your team meetings to check the progress of your schemes against IMS targets, and then look to update IMS after each meeting if there are changes. Again, Profile, as I've shown on the slide, has the same information. So, you know, look to have one version there, IMS matching all your internal reporting. You know, grant payments must set maybe the following month, you know, for your sequel reporting, but just as, you know, it takes about 10 days after a grant claim has been submitted. But, you know, please make sure your forecasting is looked at on a very regular basis. I've listed the quarter end dates there, June, September, December and March. If you're forecasting for any completions in those months, be really certain that you can achieve those, because they are significant dates for Homes England, particularly the March one. And if you know, please, if anything's going to slip out of March, tell Homes England as soon as possible. And if anything, don't forecast in March, because it could just be absolute pain. So please be really accurate and be certain of those dates if they are in a quarter end date. I've got a tip on forecasting where Homes England will say thank you for you, or basically say tar if you're in Yorkshire. It's to be timely and to be accurate. If I can say thank you, and let's move on to the next slide then, Chris.
Absolutely.
So the next slide is basically to show you about the provider information. I think it's a tool that's not well used, but you find them on the top tab there under provider reports, and it can give you a suite of information on all your milestones, on your expenditure, start on site claim dates, or your completions in your programme that you're reporting. So pull them off in it, and you can export them to Excel to create a board report for yourselves rather than duplicating the information. So yeah, that's really good, you know, a good source of information, particularly if you're new to the team. If you look at the provider reports, it gives you an overview of what's happened in the past and what's coming forward for the pipeline, so you're prepared for those team meetings. Again, I've just also added in scheme information. Again, there's a function called scheme log comments. I like to use that for updating that conversation, if you like, the virtual conversation with Homes England. So if there's any waivers that have been issued, I will add the copy of that email to scheme log comments, so it's then acknowledged by Homes England. You add that copy to your audit file, and that really satisfies the auditor that the information has been provided. And it also stops you having to trail through all your emails to find that email from a certain member of Homes England staff some months ago. It's all there on the scheme file on IMS. So treat the scheme log comment also a record of your conversations with Homes England when it comes to crucial audit information. Next slide, please. From me. Yeah, this is just to try and bring it all together about what we've been talking about today, is using IMS to get the information right and to bring it in line with all your other systems so that you've got one version. Here I've just used an example of rents. where you can think you've got different systems that you have to work with within your department, within your team. You've got your Proval, you've got your SQL, and they all link to the housing management system. And then you've got IMS. Make sure they're all aligned and they all reflect the same information, all draws it together. And then what's brilliant is for the auditor to see that you've got that copy of that information into your audit file and it all has the same rental values. That's a really good sign of a really good audit file and a scheme that's well thought out when you've got all the information drawn together.
I think, Sue, just to kind of amplify that point, especially if there's anybody on the webinar who's relatively new to the development regime, my top tip would be that you see all these three systems as live systems, almost on a daily or at a minimum weekly basis, where you are constantly checking what's going on in the general marketplace, how your schemes are progressing, and don't think, oh, I need to update the Proval because we've issued an extension of time and the dates are later or whatever. Immediately think, what's the knock-on effect both for IMS and your in-house management systems? We act for a large consortium, many people are aware of that, and only this morning we've sent out a bullet note to our members saying, if you look all over the BBC today, apart from Dominic Cummins, look all over the BBC and the headline news is about shortages of materials, lack of labour supply, imminent delays in the construction industry. Our intention, and I don't mean it disrespectfully to any of the more experienced people on the call, but for the more inexperienced people, is to say, don't just read these stories, read them and think, gosh, this is going to have an impact on us. What will that impact be? And what three systems as a minimum do I need to update to ensure that we've accounted for all of that impact? So see each of them as live systems, but respect the interconnectivity between the three systems. That would be the advice.
Yeah. Okay, and it's I've used rents as an example here, but there's unit sizes, if anything changes on site, think of anything get changed on site. So if you come back from a site meeting, think it's what needs to change, like Sean says. So don't leave it till the last minute. Please keep updated IMS as and when changes happen. Because that way, you get a far better outcome at audit. Right. Pass on now to Danielle with the next slide, please.
Okie dokie. Just before we move on quickly, can you advise, this is from Robert, can you advise the different weeks in a year and the different systems and how to display that?
Okay.
Yeah.
We can advise you, Robert. I'm guessing this is around the 52.12, 52.18 debate. That's all I can imagine it is, Chris.
Okay, yeah, we'll just, if Rob can, he says he's talking about rent weeks.
Yep.
He pressed too early, so I got half a question.
Okay.
It's the ongoing debate for the
Yeah.
continuing year after
year. Yeah. At the end of the day, what the auditor wants to see is that your annualized rent comes down to whatever you're going to charge per week. So if it's some local authorities are like 48 weeks, or some charge 52 weeks, some charge 50. As long as you've worked out and you can show that calculation of what you've got, what the annualized sum is divided by your organisation's number of weeks, that's how we work it out. Proval's got it as 52.12, which was what Homes England did ask for the audit checklist, but that's been relaxed, but it doesn't specify the weeks now on the audit checklist. So as long as you can show that calculation and it works out what the tenant is, the resident's being charged, that based on that, the valuation report. Again, that's what's been asked for.
And we should be using 52.18 is the mathematical formula for a year going forward. Yeah, that's
yeah.
Okay, well, people, comment here from Katie. Love that debate. And Robert Mannion says 52.12 and 52.18, but we've all now settled 52.18 is the one you would put your money on.
It should be.
Okay.
I think without raising expectations of people on the webinar, we've recently received an update from Homes England's audit division. So people on the call who do work for registered providers, you might hear some news in the next few weeks. But one of the things they have said is that they are looking at the whole audit process. So there may very well be some movement around this that makes it even more simple for Robert and others that are on the call.
Good. But obviously in ProVal, you can, it's a setting that you put in. So it's down to you and your process that you put in.
Okay, let's move on. Next slide.
I think I'll just add that for your rents and what you charge, make sure your tenancy agreement matches IMS, and then put a copy of that redacted on your audit file. Obviously, we don't want GDPR details for your tenants going out to your auditors, but that's the question. Does it match IMS? So as long as your calculation's there and you've got evidence to show it, that's what they look for. From my slide, it's just looking at how we break down the year, really. So everybody's aware of the quarter ends and the pressure that will come from Homes England if you want to move out of each quarter. So we break it down quite nicely. I'm not going to go through each one because you can all read that perfectly well. But if you're going to move out of quarters, try not to move out of quarter 4, because that will just get you lots of interrogation from Homes England as to why you forecasted that in the first place. As Sue said before, make sure your forecasts are accurate. And if you do need to move, make sure you tell Homes England in good time. They will not appreciate a last minute change because they've drawn down that money, they've requested that money. And as we have in our consortium, people have to pick up that slippage. So make sure you're accurate. Main thing for me for IMS is making sure your compliance audit is live throughout your entire scheme. So from the minute you put a bid in, start collating your data, start preparing your scheme file, and start grabbing your screenshots. But if you do need to make any changes whatsoever, try and do them before you think your audit is going to be selected, is the nicest way I can word it. Because as soon as you've had that email notification from Homes England that you're going to be audited, technically you shouldn't make any more changes in IMS because it should be there ready to go. So the key ones for us, make sure your quarter ends are updated in good time. And yeah, have your audit files as a working document throughout your entire scheme. It might take a couple of years, but always have it running alongside your program management and use your IMS for program management, really, is what I would say.
Excellent. Are you ready for the next one?
Just to add on that, Dan, I think we can share with people that we don't know this is a definite, but we do know it's being talked about with Homes England potentially switching to a rolling programme of audit. So at the moment we have a calendar-based approach, notification in May, audit in the summer, results in the autumn, that type of approach. It has been talked about before, but it is being talked about again, that there will just be spot audits at any one particular time. And the deadline we heard was that you would have 2 weeks to submit your audit file. So just to really underline the sound advice from Danielle, from the start of a scheme, start to compile your audit file and actually just run the scheme in an audit manner. Why would you not do that anyway? It's just good behaviour to practice.
And I think for your auditors' purpose, they don't know the background to your scheme or any intricacies or any issues you might have had on site. So it's a fine balance between too much information and too little, but make sure you give them the background to understand why your scheme's been done in a certain way, why you chose affordable rent, why you went for social rent, and just make sure you've got enough evidence. But obviously don't give them a full contract, give them just like the signature page, the dated page. It's just that balance of enough information so you don't get a lot of questions, really, I would say. But make sure it's accurate information.
Just a quick question here. Have you any idea how long a new bid takes to get a response? And that's from Pauline.
I would say Homes England is saying to us about 4 to 6 weeks at the moment, depending on when the bid is submitted and how close to a bid assessment meeting will be, because they need a couple of weeks to assess that bid. It will take longer if the information is only partly being completed or they need more details. So that's why trying to outline to you today the benefits of filling in the IMS forms, if you like, completing the system, and giving a really good overview from the very start. Gives Homes England the opportunity to take that bid to be assessed a lot quicker. They've got all the answers there. They're likely to come back with a few queries, but you don't want to have to make wholesale changes to that offer line to be considered. So I'd say 4 to 6 weeks. I can't give you anything a bit more definite than that.
Pauline, I would just point you back to the comment that Sue made at the beginning of slide 3 or 4 about the new programme. Just don't pay lip service to the fact that Homes England are trying to make changes in this programme. The attractiveness of SME construction, MMC, quality of build, all of these factors were all referenced in the 16 to 21 programme, but were probably not measured with the level of rigour that we're experiencing, certainly at the moment. Some of our 21 to 26 bids that have already been submitted have been subject to additional rigour, the like of which we've not had in the last few years at least. And I have to say, as a long-standing housing delivery partner, that I actually welcome the additional rigour around quality. We should be delivering homes that we're proud of. We should be able to explain our decisions, and we should be able to provide the logic behind the choices that we've made. So it might elongate it, is the point I'm making, Pauline. And as I mentioned in a previous context, if for some reason your grant rate is a complete outlier, then that will potentially take longer as well, because it might not be capable of being approved locally, and it may need to go to national moderation or national scrutiny. So 4 to 6 weeks as an average, Pauline.
Brilliant, thank you. And I'm getting questions about recordings and slides. Everyone's going to get a copy of the recording, and we're going to make the slides available to everyone as well, because it's a resource that we want to be out there circulating. Are we ready for the next slide?
I think that's it.
Okay, great. There we go. We're done. So we've got 12 minutes. 12 minutes. If anyone would like to flood in the questions, I would be grateful. It's quite interesting. There's one thing and obviously last week we had Shed KM in, and their MMC. They're very good with their MMC. Now, Homes England are obviously encouraging providers to use MMC, but does the grant they're going to get outweigh the cost and risk associated with MMC? Clearly, that's their aim. Is it actually going to do that?
I'll go first, Sue, Danielle, and then at least it's me.
I hit you with the hard one there.
No, at least it's me that's dropped our company in it. The answer, Chris, to some extent, is that the the recognition, well, first of all, let's start in a different place. If you're a strategic partner, there is an imposition now of MMC. So that's a step change anyway. So this is definitely a direction of travel. If you're a CME partner, as Sue's highlighted, MMC and reference to it runs throughout the whole context now. So it is something we're all going to have to explore and look to deliver. The long-standing argument is that MMC is more expensive to deliver, and as such, we need additional grant. What our experience is that if you can evidence that it's more expensive and therefore that you require additional grant, then additional grant will be supported. What there isn't is there isn't just a blanket policy that an MMC scheme attracts 20% more grant or 30% more grant than the next home. Now, we could have a much more open theoretical debate about whether it should, because one might argue, actually, Homes England, on behalf of central government, could play a fundamental role here in making a marketplace. If we all think back to photovoltaic panels and the feed-in tariff, the government largely made that marketplace. The panels were extremely expensive. Next thing, you couple the panel with a feed-in tariff, everybody wanted to buy them, the market rate lowered, all of a sudden the product's affordable. That's probably the same journey that MMC is going to have to go through. But at the moment, there isn't a blanket policy. But our experience to everybody on the webinar is if you can justify additional grant because of higher costs, then it will be supported.
Okay, thank you very much, John. That's a very sensible, robust response, as I would expect. Something here from Rob. We've tried MMC once, it didn't go well, took longer in the end than a traditional bill. Is the panel aware of any regional or national conversations going on about MMC products, which are good products and which are not? Any kind of differentiator?
I'll go again. We're acutely aware of endless projects that are going on, and we've been involved in a number of ourselves, and our own consortium is participating in another call in the next few weeks, actually, about an MMC offer. I think the issue I've got with MMC generally is that if I just clash two things together, when we hear the word MMC, we all have our own version of what MMC means. It's a bit like the phrase working from home. Working from home has become a national phrase, but it means a million different things to different people. MMC is very similar. So in our experience, the goal ambition is to go for a volumetric system where the properties are entirely constructed off-site, delivered to site, and you get that expediency of delivery and that wow moment that we've all seen the kind of camera footage of when it's occurred. But that isn't without its obvious challenges. When you start going down to a panelized system, you can remove some of those challenges, but maybe you're not still the holy grail. I think if I had a criticism of the capital funding guide this time round in the programme, whilst I'm supportive that they've included MMC, as Sue highlighted, there are actually 7 classifications of MMC that you can tick. And the 7th classification is little more than timber frame construction that we've been doing for 20, 30 years anyway. So it's a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing, really, that if we're going to go for this, we really need to fuel the marketplace, go for it, and don't allow us to be doing half-hearted attempts at this.
Thank you very much, Sean. Echoes everything that actually Duncan Smith, Commercial Director of Walsall Housing Group, who's a regular, actually says as well. We're going to move away from MMC. Just quickly on that, Sarah Fawcett has said the Northern Housing Consortium are starting work on this, apparently.
Yeah.
So let's go back to a bit more specific. This one's from Neil. Hello, Neil. Thank you very much. Do we think the 2012 construction commitments evidence will still be required required for the 21-26 audit?
It has been taken off the audit checklist, but it's still there in the capital funding guide as a requirement. In the last, it wasn't in the last compliance audit checklist, but it's still there as a requirement because it's good practice. If I'm correct.
Yeah, I think it won't do any harm to record it, but in terms of satisfying an audit question, like Sue said, it was removed. And from the emails we've had from Homes England, we're going to get an update about compliance audit in June, probably more mid to the end of June. My understanding is that will be who's going to be selected for audit. When the results for last year's, I'm not quite sure of that date yet, but I would still keep a record of that information. Just with changes in the audit checklist, you never know if they might bring it back to fall back in line with what is on the CFG. So it doesn't do any harm to have it, but don't put it on your file for the current checklist, which may change.
And yeah, and on that note, Neil, we have had incidences in the past where the declared audit checklist from Homes England then didn't match the actual audit requirements of Homes England. So going back to the point we made earlier, just operate all of your projects in the most compliant manner, and then you know that you've got all bases covered, and then provide the information that's requested when it gets to the actual audit question stage.
Okay, thank you very much. How does the SP process differ from CME on IMS? A lot of abbreviations there. That's one from Mark. Thank you, Mark.
It's a completely different system. Excuse me. Yeah, what we've touched on today is the CME process for organisations that want a bid for grant through the 21-26 programme through the CME route. For strategic partners, it's a different setup because it's expenditure based. So yeah, get to grips with another IMS system. Yeah, another one if you want to be a strategic partner.
But maybe one for you, Chris and Andrew. You know, it may very well be worth running a smaller bespoke webinar for SP partners. I know one of the SP partners in the north who's on this webinar have done an awful lot of the forging of the system, working very closely with Homes England over a long period of time. So maybe a bespoke presentation to SP partners may be valuable.
Thank you, Sean. If you're listening now and you would like to view that, if you would like us to do that, then please do let us know, because we always want to focus on what our audience wants. That is almost always the focus. Andrew?
Yeah, I suppose we could definitely, if there's an interest in there, we're happy to do that, as well as shared ownership as well. Probably go through the shared ownership. Is that all been updated now and it's all in place?
Well, I wouldn't say it was all in place, Andrew. I think everybody on this webinar will be anxiously waiting for two documents. Number one, the draft contract for 21-26, because everybody is bidding somewhat blind at the moment. Yeah, and number two, the accompanying shared ownership lease. Our view is that it isn't doomsday. We don't think there are lots of things that RPs need to be overly concerned about. But there will be different elements of it that carry different risks and concerns, largely geographically based, where you are in the country. In certain areas that we operate in the north, the likelihood of anybody exercising a 10% shared ownership acquisition is really probably quite low, but that might not be the case elsewhere in the country. Now that we've got the cap on repairing liability for the period that's declared, it gives RPs a bit more certainty about their exposure in that area. But as with so many of these things, we still don't know the lease duration yet, Andrew. So we just need to see these two key documents really, and then I think people can make informed decisions.
Yeah, we did a presentation last week, and I think it's emerging. It's 990-year lease, isn't it?
Okay.
That's you know, from we had solicitors on there, so Yeah, and then we had Curo as well on the Taurus. Sorry, Curo or
Yeah.
Taurus. Sorry, saying
Yeah,
that
of course.
23-24 is when they're starting to kind of look at the 10% kind of hitting their program. Where, as you say, what kind of level is to be determined yet. But yeah, I'm just talking about the IMS update of the shared ownership inputting. That needs to be in place as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It
I
hasn't
think
been changed.
just to
Sorry, yeah.
just to raise one
Karen.
flag for people on the call. It may very well be, that when the contract is released, that actually there is a very short expected turnaround time for when you approve to sign up to the contract. I don't think the contract is being released for negotiation. I think the contract will be the contract and you will be given a time by which you need to sign up to it. So it may be worth you flagging that internally with management teams, senior teams, boards, whoever you need to do, just to make sure you've got the mechanisms in place so that when the contract lands, people appreciate that you're going to have to make some decisions about your preparedness to sign up to that contract.
Thank you very much. Just a little comment here from Audrey. We do believe there is potential for the 10% ownership in the north. We operate out of Croxteth and have some properties are worth as little as 70K.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily disagree, Audrey. I just statistically, we've all been able to dispose of assets at 25% for a long period of time now, and statistically, they make up a very, very small offering annually of the shared ownership disposals. So whether the 10% becomes increasingly attractive, I think in isolation, none of these things are perhaps too concerning, Audrey. The one concern that we've had in the past is the culmination of these things coming together that might actually end up in a situation where by the time you've got a longer lease and 10-year repairing responsibility on behalf of the landlord and an ability to buy at a 10% share, that cocktail of things may make the product more attractive. So we'll wait and see, Audrey. Some of this you're going to have to just take a calculated estimate of in terms of your forecasting of sales and disposals and things of that nature. But I suspect in some ways, Chris, if I may, this kind of brings us back to the essence of today's seminar around IMS and the linkages with your housing management system and of course with your SDS system, which is we're living in turbulent times. We're also living with very fluid dynamics at the moment. And this is probably even more important now that over the next year or two, you have pretty daily constant management of these systems to ensure that the information you're providing to key partners and stakeholders is as accurate as it can possibly be at all times.
And please, you know, anyone out there, you know, we are as a company, we're all about kind of improvement, integration, helping that process. So if anyone can get us at that table, you know, to help us, help you transfer that information from our systems to Homes England, we're all ears. You know, with software development, sharing information, transferring information is all the buzzwords in technology. So we're always happy to help. And we're rewriting ProVal and SQL into the cloud, and there's a great opportunity there to bring Homes England in, you know, no difference to any other competitors, but to transfer that information from our system into theirs automatically. We will help as best as much as we can.
Yeah, that's right. We have one developer solely working on a universal API, which will directly integrate with housing management and a number of other systems. So we can cut out all those Excel sheets and middle ground and where errors can happen. I'll just come back to Audrey now.
Can I just add to Audrey's question? Sorry. about shared ownership, because what we see, we input a lot of information into IMS and there's a load of data there. And I think I had one ask from Homes England, particularly with the new changes with shared ownership, is if they could provide to the sector the data that is on the number of the average tranche sale to see if it's any lower. If people are proposing to sell at 10%, if actual sales have happened at 10%, and similar other changes that have come through the shared ownership scheme, when it manifests itself on IMS, if they could pull off that data and share it with us, because that will help us then to bid for schemes using those benchmark levels. So yeah,
I think so.
We're seeing with the information in, let's try and get some of that analysis back out to the sector.
One of the things that, Sue, that I think that we will be doing is with our clients that we have, is we'll be collating data on shared ownership, and I think that'll be a quite nice little service that we can, like we do on your standard assumptions, we can do that on your shared ownership information, because obviously in the new program you could go up to 3% of the unsold equity. Now that may mitigate what Sean is talking about, the other aspects of the new of the new offering. So you know, it's a kind of balance on viability. Where is the cutoff? Is it 50 years? Is it 40 years? Is it, you know, we can run those scenarios and see what the optimum value of a 10% product is, which I've done, and I think I've done a webinar on as well. So happy to go through that with different teams as well.
Yeah. Okay. If I could just go back to Audrey's comments on, you know, we do believe that there is a potential for 10% ownership and all the benefits that go with it, loans, etc., and also reduced rents and no maintenance. So this is something that will make quite a big difference.
It's the lenders as well, isn't it? You know, the lenders' criteria I've heard is the minimum of 20,000 or 30,000 deposit. So there's a number of combinations there. Who are going to be the lenders? What's their criteria? And working with that basis. You know, I've tried to speak to Thames Valley as well, because they've been doing this for a while. So to get some bit more detail about theirs, and we hopefully will present that back as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. We've got a couple more questions here before we wrap up. Saffer Cooper, I realize that we've overrun a little here. Is everyone still okay to stay on for a few minutes?
Yeah.
Of course.
Great.
Of course.
So here's one from Neil. Should we collectively instruct one solicitor to do a report for all RPs to present to board on the new contract?
Okay, well, gosh, I'll take it, Neil. So I've mentioned it already. Lots of people are familiar with our work. So we work for a large consortium, and that's the approach the consortium have taken, Neil. So they've commissioned one legal practice to undertake a review, and that will be provided to all members, and all members will take that through their board. Not specifically with reference to the people that we act for, but that's one of the obvious benefits of being in a consortium approach. So if you are in a consortium, Neil, that might be something you want to float with your fellow members. If you're not, but you have a geographic link with people around you, it might be something that you want to club together around. I'm not a lawyer, Neil, so I can't give you legal advice on the actual contract and the documentation. But what I would say is Danielle and I met with our lawyer. We've lined our lawyer up purely because we know there's going to be this quick turnaround on approving the contract, and we've procured the lawyer to undertake a review, but then we've met with them to be very, very clear about what we're asking of the lawyer. We're asking them to highlight certain things, the obvious being the risks involved. We're not asking them to start trying to rewrite the contract, because the contract is a presentation, it's not a negotiation. So just be very, very clear when you're instructing your lawyer, Neil, would be my best advice as to what is the service you're asking of the lawyer, and what are the key milestones that you as an RP are going to have to satisfy your board of in order to obtain permission to sign up to the contract.
Okay. Thank you very much. And then I believe, yes, so this is one from Rob. Can schemes that use only Rcgf and no new grant be subject to a compliance audit?
I don't know, Rob.
I don't think so. No.
We'll
Potentially, because it is use of grant funding, but I think Homes England, I've tried to move away from auditing schemes that take up very little grant. People like right to acquire, they no longer audit. Nil grants, they say they won't audit, but because it has used grant funding, it could be subject to audit. It would be the you know, as with any, because it's using public funds. You've obtained that Rcgf, you've used that Rcgf rather than asking for or accessing new grants, so it's the equivalent of getting grant funding in that scheme.
Okay, Neil's saying, I assume yes, as it is in IMS. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
One last thing, Audrey, back to the 10%, but if 10% is only 7K, and then, sorry, I know I'm harping on.
Let's not go. Let's not go into the detail of that. No.
That is a rabbit hole we will come back to in our next shared ownership program update. And so I'm going to start wrapping up now. So I want to thank Saffer Cooper. They've been absolutely brilliant. They've created us an incredible resource that we're going to share with you. Upcoming here, and we've got a little break for our annual user group meeting, and we're also changing platform to Zoom webinar, because GoToWebinar, as so many of you I've had conversations with, cannot get in sometimes. It has many different bugs, and we've just had enough. So we're going to be taking that break to change to a new platform. I'm going to be coming with some news graphics as well. I want to make it look a bit more like a news show. And as you can see, after that, we've got something planned after on the 9th of June. We're going to talk about the SP webinar for that as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Andrew, do you have any closing remarks?
Just say thank you, Sean and the team. Thank you, Sue and Danielle. It's lovely to see you again, and thank you for that. Really appreciate your time today. And I think out of that is probably, you know, we can do this MMC. I know Christopher has been going on about this with me in a hole in the ear. I think every conversation I have with him is, should we do MMC? What's going on MMC? So it's nice to turn the conversation that way. But anyway. It'd be nice to do something, probably what's emerging on MCZ. What's the best practice? Oh, there you go. The brick is cutting the blocks again. So it'll be live from a development site from my house. So it would be nice to actually get some what's emerging, you know, in the sector, and what can people learn from that. Perhaps that's a webinar on its own, and I'll leave it there because it's so noisy.
I can't believe you're pitching an MMC webinar to me. That's amazing. Right. Thank you, everyone else. And we will be in touch in the future. Make sure you subscribe on our website, and you'll get all the updates. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.